Agriculture Forum. We are glad today to have an expert in global trade of agricultural commodities today.
Hello everyone, I'm Yifei.
We'll have a discussion about the change in wheat production and wheat global trade in the past 20 years. Why are we talking about wheat today? Because wheat is one of the most important agricultural commodities in the world. And the food we eat every day, such as bread, pasta, and noodles, they are all made of wheat. Because wheat can contribute essential amino acids, minerals, and vitamins. So wheat are very important in our daily life. Now I'll show you some data about wheat production and global trade in the past 20 years. All the data are from FAO state. This map shows the production of wheat of each country in 2011. Now let's look at the map. The dark green parts are the top producing countries. The top 5 countries are China, India, United States, Russia, and France. As you can see on the map, the annual production of each of these countries is over 37 million tons. This table shows some major producing countries in 2011. China produced 170 million tons. United States produced 54 million tons. Australia produced 27 million tons. And Canada produced 25 million tons. Wheat production has increased a lot in the past 20 years. From 1991 to 2011, top 5 countries' production has increased 13%, and the total production of the world has increased about 28%. In 2011, the total production of the world has reached 700 million tons. However, top 5 countries always contribute more than half of the total production of the world. In 1991, top 5 countries accounted for about 57% of total production. In 2001 and 2011, top 5 countries accounted for about 50% of total production. Now we have identified the major wheat producing countries, and we know that the population and the demand for wheat in China and India are huge. So after we have considered both the supply side and the demand side of wheat, now, can you guess what are the biggest wheat exporting countries? Yeah, it's easy. They are United States, France, Australia, Canada, Russia, and Argentina. As shown on the map, the darker the color, the more they export. And what about the major importing countries? As you can see on the map, they are Egypt, Algeria, Italy, Japan, Brazil, and Indonesia. Now we have identified the 5 major import and export countries in the world. Now, Yifei, could you give us more information about it?
Yes, okay. The share of the 5 major importing and exporting countries has actually changed a lot during the past 20 years. Now let's look at some charts and compare in detail about how they would change. As we said just now, the 5 major wheat exporting countries are US, Canada, France, Australia, and Argentina, even though Russia has taken the place of Argentina in the recent years. We can see that the total share of other countries as a whole is getting larger, which implies that the total share of the 5 largest wheat exporting countries is getting smaller. It has decreased from 87% in 1991 to 76% in 2001 and less than 70% in 2011. Of these 5 countries, the share of the top 3 countries, US, Canada, and France, are also getting smaller. Then let's have a look at the import side. The share among different importing countries are relatively evenly distributed. We cannot see there are several dominant importing countries as the export side does. However, the main importing countries are mostly concentrated in Italy, Egypt, and Japan. And the share of import from other countries is getting larger from 60% in 1991 to more than 75% in 2011, where most of the demand comes from developing countries. It's noticeable that Russia has converting from a net importer country from 1991 to one of the 5 largest exporting countries in 2011, enjoying a 10% share of world total wheat export. Here's a bar chart showing Russia's export quantity across the past 20 years. We can see a huge change. This is before the 2001. Russia had almost no export, but after that, its export grew rapidly, even though its total wheat production does not grow as significantly as its export shows. Here come back to the export side. You may have noticed that the main wheat production countries are consistent with major wheat export countries. And you may want to know that whether there is a positive correlation between the wheat production and its export. So we've done some analysis in this part. Here are our findings. See the scatter chart, which shows us the correlation between wheat export and its production of 4 major wheat exporting countries: US, Canada, France, and Australia. We add trend line and its equation to help us better analyze their relationships. The R-square shows the extent of the linear correlation between wheat export and production. The larger the R-square, the more closely correlated between the two variables. Here we can see that Canada has the largest R-square value, followed by Australia. However, the number is relatively small, so we can only conclude that there is some positive correlations between the two, but it's a very weak one. Only the figure for Canada shows us a strong relationship between the two variables.
As far as I know, Canada has a higher share of export in the production, and you have just shown that the correlation between production and export is much higher in Canada. So can we hypothesize that it is its higher share of export in production that contribute to its high correlation?
A good question. This can be answered by looking at the chart and the summary table below.
Okay.
This chart shows the share of export in production and the correlation between the two variables. We can easily notice that the two countries, Canada and Australia, with higher share of export, also have a higher R-square value, which implies a higher correlation between the two variables.
What do you think is the reason behind this?
This is probably because when the proportion of export is high, the increased production will mostly goes to export, while when the proportion of export is low, the increased production will mostly go to domestic consumption.
Wow, it's very impressive. Thank you, Yifei.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. Bye.